All right. Tonight we're going to keep on talking about this guy named Jonah. Okay, you heard a little bit about him. You guys have been coming, you heard a little bit about how God tried to call him. God told him he needed to do a hard job. And what did he do? He said, I'm going the other way. I'm not doing what God wants me to do. I'm doing what I want to do. I want to go on vacation. And so he took off. He got on a ship and he took off. That's right. He said, I'm getting out of here. I don't want, but tonight we're going to learn, because last week, I don't know if you remember, last week, these guys took him, and what'd they do with him? They threw him overboard. For a week, he's been underwater. Now, we've been waiting to see what happens to this guy, Jonah. But what we're going to learn tonight is about when it is that you should give up and when it is that you should never give up. Now, I'm the kind of person that doesn't ever like to give up. I keep on going. I just keep going no matter what. I remember in high school, I decided to go out for the wrestling team when I was a senior in high school. And I hadn't been out for wrestling all high school. I'm going to decide I'm going to go out for wrestling. And so I was wrestling guys on my own team to learn how to wrestle, right? And I broke this one guy's leg. And he was out for the season, one of my own teammates. And so then a little bit later, I was wrestling this other guy, and I got him around I didn't know what I was doing, so I got around his head, right? There's Mark, just lay it right there anywhere. And I decided to just sit down with this guy. I had my arm around this guy's head, and he was a big guy, and his head, his shoulder came all the way loose, and he had a separated shoulder. He was out for the season. So that was the second guy on my own team. And then another guy, I tried some move, but I didn't know what I was doing. His leg went the opposite way, and he ended up on crutches for the rest of the season. So I took 3 guys out, right, on my own team, which left me a spot on the team as a wrestler. So that's how I ended up actually the captain of the team, because the coach said that only the seniors are captains, and there were only 2 of us that were seniors. So anyway, sometimes you got to know when to give up. I'll just tell you one more thing that happened. One time, this guy just about had me pinned, right? I was on my back, and he just about had me pinned, and I didn't know what to do. And I was saying, hey, I was saying to the ref, he's choking me, let go. Tell him to get off me. And he said, all you have to do is give up. I said, I'm not going to give up. He said, hey, but he's choking me, I can't breathe. I didn't give up, I didn't die. But one other time, and don't do this, don't even think about doing this, okay. This guy, well, you won't be doing this, I don't think. But anyway, this guy was wrestling me, had me on my back. I was about ready to lose it. I didn't want to lose because I didn't want to give up. And so I did something, never do this, okay? I can't even believe I did this. Okay, but he had me on my back, and so finally he had his chest right on my face, so I just bit him. He jumped up, he bit me, but it didn't break the skin. I got up. I know, don't do that. That was wrong. That was so wrong. But I know, but it didn't show anything, and we got to keep on wrestling. But don't do it, right? It was wrong. But anyway, the point is, I don't like to give up at all. And so here's this guy, Jonah. And tonight we're going to talk about when to give up, see you, Mark, and when to not give up. And we're going to look at Jonah chapter 1, the last verse in the chapter. Jonah chapter 1, watch this pretty magically. She's going to make this happen. Okay. Now the Lord prepared a great fish to swallow Jonah, and Jonah was in the belly of the fish 3 days and 3 nights. God prepared, and so what happened is, probably that's one of the most unbelievable stories in the Bible. A lot of times, well, I would believe the Bible, except for I can't hardly believe that story about Jonah and how he got swallowed by a fish. But it reminds me of this little video I saw. It's just a short 8-second video. I want you to watch this video and see if it kind of reminds you of that. You know, it can happen. It can happen sometimes. Yeah, he didn't get him in there, but anyway, some people have a hard time believing that. But let me. If you have a hard time believing that, let me tell you this: are you kidding me? This is God. God can't put somebody inside and keep them alive for 3 days. Do you have that picture of that whale? A picture of a whale. Okay, look at this. Look at this whale here. Okay, that's a whale, right? Just part of the whale jumping out of the water. Do we have another one, or is that the only one? Oh, there's another one. Okay, look at these creatures. Okay, look how massive. They're like, I don't know, tons. Which is harder to believe? That this fish evolved itself. It came from nothing and turned into this thing by itself. Or that a fish could swallow a man and keep that man inside him and God could keep him alive for 3 days. I think it's harder to believe that this thing just came out of nothing. Okay. But I did do a little research for you as we get going here. Oh, cool. All right. Come on in. I did a little research here to find out if there's anybody that's been swallowed by a whale in the past. Because I thought that'd be interesting to find out. And so here's some things I found out. A reporter by the name of Mueller stated that a white shark was taken near the island of Marguerite containing a whole horse. They took a shark and they killed it. They brought it and they found out a whole horse was inside it, which had apparently been thrown overboard. It fell off a ship, swallowed, then they caught it.
Must have been My Little Pony.
I don't know. Okay, another one. This was, according to an encyclopedia, there white sharks swallow unchewed creatures and objects half their size, especially seals, dolphins, turtles, other sharks, chunks of whale, fish, and ship's garbage. Okay, but then this other one thing says here, this guy, Brunchi, says that when he was a resident of Marseilles, a white shark was taken near the city containing tunas and a man fully clothed. When they caught it, it had a man fully clothed in there.
Was he dead?
He was dead, yeah. But he was, okay, but then here's the last one. Are you ready for this one? Okay. A reputable historian stated that in 1758, in stormy weather, a sailor fell into a frigate in the Mediterranean. That's just where Jonah was, in the Mediterranean, right? And a shark was close by and swallowed him. The captain had a gun, which he discharged at the fish so that it cast the sailor out. It had been stuck in his throat. The captain made they harpooned the fish, and the captain made a present of the fish to the sailor who had nearly died. The fish was then dried, and the sailor took the fish around Europe, where it was publicly displayed. And then finally, Captain Brown in 1802 testified that he found the body of a decapitated woman in the stomach of a shark that he killed. According to encyclopedias, 1/3 of shark attacks on humans result in fatalities. The most dangerous is the white shark, the hammerhead shark, and the tiger shark. So we know that they do swallow people sometimes. But this one swallowed Jonah. And remember what happened? Jonah was trying to run from God. God wanted Jonah to do a certain thing, and he wouldn't do it. And so they found out. And so they found out that who it was, that it was Jonah. And so they took him, and 1, 2, 3, they threw him overboard. And then he tells about what happened. And so that's what this chapter is about. So if we can look at the next verse in Jonah chapter 2, it says, Jonah prayed to the Lord from the fish's belly. Keep going. And he said, I cried out to the Lord because of my affliction, and he answered me. Out of the belly of Sheol I cried, and you heard my voice. So sometimes you can get yourself into some situations. I got some cards here somewhere. I get myself in a situation where I can't find my cards. Did I put them in my pocket? Yes, there they are. Okay. And so Jonah then describes the situation. I don't know how he did it because he obviously didn't have any writing paper inside the fish there. But in Jonah chapter 2, verse 3, here's what it says. For you cast me into the deep, into the heart of the seas, and the floods surrounded me. All billows, your billows and your waves passed over me. So Jonah was sinking down, down, down to the bottom. He was just about to the bottom. He didn't have any breath left. He was about ready to say, this is it. Do you think his life was passing before his eyes right there? He thought, I got no chance whatsoever. But what did it say? God prepared a great fish. Have you ever been in a situation that you think I shouldn't get myself into this situation? and you don't think there's any way out, and then all of a sudden something happens? I mean, I'm sure he wasn't, when he was thrown overboard, he wasn't sure, he wasn't thinking, you know what, God has this all planned and there's this big fish that's going to come and swallow me. He wasn't thinking that. Verse 5. It says, the waters surrounded me, even my soul, the deep closed in on me. Weeds wrapped themselves around my head. He was getting down to the bottom of the ocean. The weeds were wrapping him around. There was no chance, right? No chance whatsoever that he could be saved. That was a near-death experience. And it was at that point in time that Jonas gave up. Let's read verse 6. I went down to the bottoms of the mountains, the earth with its bars closed behind me forever. He said, I had no hope whatsoever. He gave up. And here's the first thing. I got basically 3 lessons I learned from this thing. And the one is, there's time when you say, I have to give up on all the things that I'm trying to do, that I'm trying to accomplish without God. Because guess what? When you try to live your own life and you live without God, you can't do it. You can't succeed in life. And so he finally figured out right here in the bottom of the ocean, when there was no hope left, he saw no chance. He figured out, he said, yet you have brought up my life from the pit, O Lord. Now, where was he when he was saying this? Yeah, at that point, a fish comes and swallows him, right? He's inside a fish. And what would you say if you were inside a fish? You're inside the fish with the gastric fluids, right? You're walking around these puddles. There's other chunks of other fish in there. Would you think you're being rescued? No, you think, but he figured out this, and sometimes we figured it out. If you have no hope, if you've had given up and say, I give up, I have no hope, and then something happens to let you go on, okay, you have to say to yourself, you know what? This couldn't be an accident. It's the strangest thing I ever thought of in my life happening to me right now. I'm inside a fish, but this can't be an accident. So I believe that God is doing something, even though I don't understand it. Have you ever had a situation where you're in a situation you don't understand why? Say, why am I in this thing? It's at that point you got to say to yourself, you know what? God, I'm going to believe God can rescue me. That's what he said here. He said, yet you brought me up from life, from the pit. But while he's still in this fish, he's saying, God can do something. In John 15, verses 5 and 6, Fred here is going to read that. John 15, 5 and 6. That is from the New King James, however. Fred? It's okay. New King James is okay. Don't get any further away than that. But John 15, 5 and 6. How you doing there, Ryan? I don't have it marked at all, but you know where John's at, right? John 15, 5 and 6.
15, 5 and 6.
Yes.
I am the vine, you are the branches. He who abides in me and I in him bears much fruit, for without me you can do nothing. If anyone does not abide in me, he is cast out as a branch and is withered. And they gather them and throw them into the fire, and they are burned.
Okay. So what that verse was saying, Jesus is saying, look, without me, you can't really do anything in your life. I can't do it, but God can. And that's what Jonah realized right here in this situation. I need to come to the point where I give up and say, I can't handle life myself. I'm going to have to just trust God. I'm going to have to believe that God can do the impossible in my life. And I don't even know how it's going to happen. Jonah said, I can't handle it. There was nothing he could do, right? When he's at the bottom, the seaweeds are wrapping around him. He's getting his last breath. There is nothing he could do. He finally figured out it's time to give up and stop trying to do things my way and say, you know what? God is so much bigger that he can make I wonder how he got that fish there. Did he call it? Did he just like send it? And how did the fish know to eat, to put him in his mouth, right? And then he just stayed there, living in there for 3 days. How did that happen? God is so much bigger than we are. So you have to say this: I can't handle it. I'm going to stop trying to control my life, and I'm just going to trust God because God can handle it. In Luke chapter 9, verse 24, it says, the person that tries to save their life, say, I'm going to run my life my way, will lose it. But the person that says, I'm going to give my life to God, will save their life. Their life will end up worthwhile. So there he was, inside this whale. I'm imagining he's just sitting there, and he's totally uncomfortable, and he's there for 3 days, and all he can do is think about how he got himself in this situation. And here's the other thing I want you to notice. Even when you give up on yourself, sometimes, has anybody, raise your hand if you want, has anybody ever given up on themselves? I can't, okay, all right. Even when you give up on yourself, God doesn't give up on you. He doesn't give up on you. You might have made some mistakes. You might have done some things you weren't supposed to do. And you say, I'm worthless. I'm not worth anything. I can't go anywhere in my life. You can give up on yourself. Sometimes it's good to give up on yourself, but only if you realize that God doesn't give up on you. God pursues us. Did you know that? God goes after us. Jonah said, I'm going to go the exact opposite. When God told Jonah to go to Nineveh, that wicked city, that was 500 miles northeast. 500 miles northeast, where God told him to go. Jonah got on a ship to go 2,500 miles the opposite direction. He tried to run from God. But you can't run from God because God pursues you. God doesn't give up on you. It tells us in 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 27, 28. You guys listen to this. It's going to be a good one. 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verses 27, 28. Come on. There we got 1 Corinthians. We're closing in on it. Chapter 2. Okay. But God has chosen the foolish things of the world to put to shame the wise. Sometimes I think about myself, I'm nobody. But you know what? God chooses people that think they're nobody. A lot of times we think, I could never do anything. But He chooses them to confound the wise and to put to shame the wise. And God has chosen the weak things of the world to put to shame the things that are mighty. And the base things of the world and the things that are despised, God has chosen. And the things which are not, to bring to nothing the things that are. And so here's the way God works. He chooses people that think, I can never do anything. And He does something through them to show how great He is. And so it tells us in Jonah chapter 2, verses 7 through 9, here's what it says. There's 2:1, and there's 7. When my soul fainted within me, I remembered the Lord, and my prayer went up to you into your holy temple. Okay, so from this verse, what you see is there's times in our lives when it takes we have to really get down to the bottom before we realize I need to remember that God is right here with me. He was in nobody knew where he was. If they sent out a search party for him, they couldn't have found him, right? Because who would be looking in a whale in the bottom of the ocean, right? But there he was there, and he said, when my soul fainted within me, I remembered the Lord, and my prayer went to you in your holy temple. How could he's in the bottom of the sea, how could his prayer go to God in God's holy temple? How could that happen? What? God can hear us. Friend, God can hear you. Even though you're someplace where you think nobody could get to you, God can hear you. You don't have to come to church. You can talk to God even at work. Even when you're driving down the road. Even at school when you're taking a test. You can talk to God and He can hear you. Because in your life, there's times when you say, I'm going to give up on doing things my way. I'm going to trust God to do His things His way, because God never gives up on me. I might give up on myself, but God never gives up on me. So we looked at verse 7. Let's look at verse 8. Those who regard worthless idols forsake their own mercy. Here's another way that verse goes. Those that pursue worthless idols miss out on God's blessing. If you pursue there's things in life, I'm going to really go after this. I love this thing so much. I want this, I don't know what, some kind of object you can buy. Or I really want this person so much. I do anything. If you pursue, if you make your life doing anything but pursuing God, it won't last. The only thing that lasts is God. And you miss out on God's grace in your life. Verse 9. But I will sacrifice to you with the voice of thanksgiving. I will pay what I vowed. Salvation is from the Lord. You know what Jonah was saying was, you know what? God is going to take care of me. I may be in it seems like a situation, but I already decided I'm going to be a follower of Christ. So I don't know how this is going to end. I don't know how it's going to end up, but whatever it's going to do, I'm going to follow God. I'm going to do what He says. When I get a chance, when I get out of this stinking whale, I'm going to do the things that I said I was going to do. And here's the thing you need to know. I think there's a couple more verses left in this chapter, isn't there? So the Lord spoke to the fish, and it vomited Jonah out on dry land. Okay, you don't want to really be part of a vomit situation, right? But in this situation, God spoke to the fish, and it vomited him out onto dry land. He probably needed a bath. Just jump in the ocean is right there. But here's the thing. You need to know that God, no matter what situation, no matter what kind of stinky, messed up situation you get yourself into, right? Sometimes it seems like, man, I got myself in so deep I can't get out of it. I can't believe I made the choices I made in my life. And now it's just got worse and worse. It went down and down and down, and now I'm in the bottom of nowhere. No matter what situation you're in, God still cares about you. God still has a plan for you. God can turn around anything when you turn to Him and say, okay, I'm going to give up on myself. I'm going to believe God won't give up on me. And God is going to pursue me. Do you remember the story of the prodigal son? I think we remember that from a few weeks ago. The prodigal son, how this guy decided, the son decided, I don't want to listen to him. I don't want to be under my parents. I don't want to be under my dad anymore. I'm going to take off, and I'm going to take my money, and I'm going to take off. And he went off, and he got himself in some really bad situations. But in that story, the father represents who? God. And the son represents who? Us. Right. And how we get ourselves in some situations. And you remember in that story what happened? The father was waiting when he saw the son a long way off. He did something that back in that day no fathers do, right? He picked up they wear these big things. You see them in the Middle East, the big robes. So he picked it up and he just starts tearing out to see the son. He goes he finds the son, he hugs him, he starts kissing him, and he welcomes him back. That's the way the Father is to us. He doesn't give up on us. He finds us no matter what situation we're in. If we turn to Him, He comes to us and He helps us out and He starts bringing us through life. And it doesn't mean that it's going to be easy, but it means that God is there for you. I have a question for you. Is it dangerous to trust God? Okay. But what if He asks you to do some things that are hard? Is it dangerous to trust God? Yeah. God's plan is perfect, yes. And so God has a plan for you. Has anybody ever seen read that book or seen that movie, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe? Anybody ever seen that? You guys ever seen that? Well, in that, have you seen it? Okay, in that movie, who does the lion represent? Okay, more specific, yeah, God, Jesus, right? The one that he was sacrificed. But somebody, and what was the lion's name? Aslan, yeah. So somebody asked this question. I don't remember how the discussion went, but somebody said, "Oh, Aslan, the lion, is he safe? Is he safe?" And you remember what the answer was? The answer was, no, he's not safe. He's a lion. But he's good, right? And that's the same thing with us. A lot of times God asks us to do things that aren't safe. We have to step out. We have to take chances. We have to do something for him because maybe everybody else is. You wonder what everybody else is going to think, or is going to be. It's going to be. It's not safe. It's always taking a risk to follow God, but God is good, right? He's going to take care of us. He's going to protect us. He's going to help us do what we were designed to do. And our life is going to be. There's not going to be any boredom in our life, right? Because God's going to take care of us, and He's going to lead us into doing great things for Him. And so that's it. That's the story for tonight. But we're not done, because where's Jonah right now? He's standing on the land. He stinks to high heaven. He's probably he may not have even taken a shower. I don't even know. He may have food clinging to him. He's bleached. He's completely. He was from the Middle East, right? So he's probably had dark skin, but now he's bleached because he's been in acid. He's been in that stomach acid for the whole time. So they said that if you were in there for 3 days, your body would just be bleached. It would be like snow. Okay, so here's this freak of a guy now on the shore, standing there, bleached, stinky, and you know what he decides to do? I'll tell you next week. So come back next week. Let's close with one more song, though, shall we? To be continued.